I have a hobby horse I want to see if you can join me on.
All right.
That what is happening to newsletters in terms of the lack of portability. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a Substack hater from way back.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah. And I've, people talk about the Nazi problem. Sure, that's a problem. There's actually structural stuff that scares me more.
Preach.
And that's why I've been trying to get, I had a friend last night literally say to me, thank God I talked to you about this a year ago. I would have been on Substack if it weren't for you. And it just seems so clear that their model is falling apart. And if you want to talk about you probably can explain it better than me. So
I think there's a couple things to hit. So one, email is a blessing of the internet, just like podcasts are. And it's core.
We paid for it.
Exactly.
It's now all ours.
Nobody owns it. You can take your subscribers with you wherever you go. Your email subscribers. You can email anybody. You don't have to pay, a fee when you email somebody. Like all that stuff is there. Now, if someone provides you with a good tool to email people, then they can charge for that. And that's fine. But it is an amazing, wild success that people can send trillions of emails and control it and own it. And Substack comes from, and also there's lots of great alternatives. Like I use one called Button Down, there's Beehive, there's Ghost, there's even like back the old classic ones, Medium and WordPress, those are still around there. They send emails. So there's lots and lots of alternatives. Because email is open, there can be lots of alternatives. That's what a healthy market looks like. I think people have forgotten that there used to be healthy markets with lots of competitors, but like that choice and optionality is a feature. That is a good thing. It is not bad. Like you're not going to be confused and overwhelmed. People have little charts that'll like compare. So the thing to understand about Substack is it comes from a moment really around kind of early COVID where, there's been a political project by a lot of players in Silicon Valley where they understood the importance of controlling the narrative and controlling media. And they were starting to be held accountable by mainstream journalism, like the New York Times and others. And what they started first was they boycotted those media outlets. Like, we're not talking to you, we're not giving interviews, we're not previewing our products for you. But they were so angry about there being any questioning of their authority, of their, actions, that they really went to war. And this was, this really had started half a decade prior when Peter Thiel went to war against Gawker, right? And they saw that like it was possible to have those victories. And so they realized like we have to have our own outlets, control our own media. And this is like a sort of classic authoritarian playbook, and present alternatives that we control in a media ecosystem. Like we have to destroy those media outlets, the classic journalistic outlets, and we have to have our own outlets. And they were very intentional about it. So like on the one, building their own outlets, they had things like Substack for, publishing media. They had Clubhouse, if you remember when everybody was jumping in Clubhouse, early COVID. That was going to be like talk radio for them. They had a series of other things. They had their own media publishing arm within Andreessen Horowitz, the biggest of the venture capital firms. And then, like Mark Andreessen, who was like the big figurehead at that firm, like he would host a Clubhouse room, or was in a Clubhouse room that was called How to Destroy the New York Times. It's not ambiguous, right? And Ben Horowitz, who was, one of the other founder there, his wife Felicia would host all these different cultural figures, trying to bring them into Clubhouse to try and have this be like, this is where culture is made. And Substack happened at the same time. And they were saying, we need to fund advancing our ideas out there. So like, Barry Weiss and all these other people, and they funded radical concepts that they wanted to put into culture. And this is different in kind.
They also came to me. They also came to like a bunch of other people, but it's very clear in retrospect what they were doing was buying market share. 100%. They were also, I don't know how intentional this was. They were destabilizing the journalism industry.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying.
And presenting a project and making a project out of, we don't want collective publications. We want one person, one voice at a time.
Exactly.
And it creates a level of precarity that I don't think the people who grabbed that money were a culture of precarity, actually, I would say. A
They
culture of
wanted to get
atomization and precarity.
the voices that drove traffic to the Times and to the Post and to these big publications that they knew were necessary for the ad model to work. They wanted to pull in. And like I said, they wanted to also use the legitimacy of voices like yours to take voices that were saying radical things and be able to put those radical concepts alongside the legitimate voices, right? And cross promote. So like that was a very intentional strategy because they know network strategy because they're on the board of Facebook, right? Like, you know, Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel, they were on the board of Facebook at the time. And so like, that's this thing of like, I think people really don't understand the intentionality. When you have unlimited funds and you have access to the data to see how behaviors happen on Facebook, on Instagram, on WhatsApp, on all these platforms, it's like watching, you know, that map they have of like in Pelham 123 of how the subways run, right? You're like, you know, where all the train cars are and how everything goes. You know where everybody's moving. You can replicate that. You can just sort of copy and paste that strategy. And I think, you know, they're very smart people and they had a very intentional goal and they understood that they were able to take apart something as big as Gawker. They could dismantle, you know, the pressure points, the weak points of the media outlets that they were explicitly saying they wanted to destroy in their clubhouse rooms. And the problem about all this stuff is like you talk about it, and you know, people look at you like you've got like red strings on a cork board, you know, and I'm like, it's not a conspiracy if they're talking about it in public. And then, you know, the other thing is just like at a technical level, like Substack is a very good tool for sending email newsletters. And then what you look at now, you know, is people will do this, oh, I'll send you a link. And they're like, oh, you just have to download the app to read it. And then you get into the app and you have to have an account. And then you want to send comments and you have to have an account and notes. And then the authors are like, well, I want you to use the app because I want to see if you like my stuff. And I want to see if you're going to comment. And all of a sudden, oh, I'm sending messages you can only read there. And so you've been brought into this proprietary environment. That is not a newsletter anymore. That's not email anymore. That is just a closed social network. And they've been very aggressively accelerating this.
You can't take those with you.
Now you're locked in. And yesterday, Hamish McKenzie, CEO of Substack, as we record this, it was the day prior, had said, oh, you know, you can't rely on email anymore.
Whoa.
The messages just don't go through. You can't count on that. You're going to have to rely more and more on the tools we're giving you. And he links to one of their technical guys talking about how, you know, it's just getting so hard out there to send those messages. So like they're boiling the frog right now. And yeah, gosh, I'm shocked to see gambling going on in this establishment, right? Like it's not, you know, like it's the most predictable thing in the world. And then there's the content moderation piece, right? To have their CEO, there's a great clip from The Verge where, you know, Nilay Patel had asked him about like, if you have somebody on there saying, I want to exterminate brown people, like, are you going to moderate them off? And he's just like, no. Okay. You know, like, cool. Message heard. Got it. Message received. And so, you know, it's wild when like, we don't mind paying Nazis who are on our platform is the last of the objections.
I mean,
that's where they are.
It's a big objection, but
yeah,
what I get frustrated
like the structural stuff is the
it's
problem.
like we have people as Substack newsletters on the podcast.
Sure,
I'm not.
I get how they got there. I know why they got there.
It is an easy platform.
I don't fault people. Yeah.
It is I would say, it's the best, easiest to use.
And they're most familiar with it too. People consider it the default.
It's the default. I've started a Substack. But the reason to get off, the way I put it to people is not because there's Nazis there. It's because you will be trapped with them.
Yes.
Like, do you want to be handcuffed to Nazis when there starts to be even more? Not right now. There's a few.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Wait until Elon buys it. Wait until like.
Right.
Someone...
Well, and that he can buy it is the issue, right? So like what happened with us on Twitter was he was able to buy our network and our tweets and have it, right? On email, he can't buy email. They can't buy podcasts. They can buy Substack. And when we're locked in, if you're locked into Substack, they can buy you. If you have an email newsletter, they cannot buy you. And you know, and if you're locked into Substack, what they will do is start to cross promote. to the thing that they want to amplify. So every person who's still on Twitter is seeing Musk's, they said this, they promote Musk's tweets to 100% of users on Twitter, 100%. And he amplifies accounts that have showed generated images of sexualized images of children. Okay. We used to universally agree this was the line that was too far. Every person still on that service is susceptible to that. So every person that's putting their content exclusively on there is saying, I don't mind that you will be exposed to this person that amplifies that content. People can make their own choices. I won't do that to the people I love. That's my choice. The same thing will happen to people on Substack. I guarantee it. It's only a question of when. And so if you know that's going to happen and you think that is a bad thing to happen, I can give you options that, by the way, are cheaper, that, by the way, will give you more controls. It is not as convenient right now to migrate. Okay. Are you going to choose convenience over everything? Over everything. That is got to be the question. And I know people got up and marched. We had the biggest demonstrations in the history of this country. I know people have sold their Teslas. I know people have inconvenienced themselves in so many other ways. Let this be one. That's all I'm saying.